Hey everyone, how do we stop the cycle of toxic relationships? Many people in our community, well, not including me at this moment, but in my past, often get out of these really unhealthy relationships and then end up kind of dating the same person in a different body over and over and over. And so today I wanted to, and here she is, I wanted to talk to an expert. Her name is Sherry Gaba. She's here.
I made it! Yay!
Yes.
I'm a little older than you guys, so yeah, it takes me a minute with the tech, but I'm so excited I'm here.
Yeah, yes, you did it, and you did it so quickly. So I'm
Yeah.
thrilled. But I was just saying that many people in our shared community obviously are dealing with trauma. All of our clients have some kind of betrayal trauma usually, and they're dealing with an ex with mental health issues and or active addictions. And so often they come out of a relationship and they end up getting into another one, like I said, with another
Not
unhealthy
halfway
person.
together,
Right.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just thought before you even introduce yourself, Sherry, from your perspective, since our clients are all men and women from around the world dealing with domestic violence, is there a link between domestic violence and developing patterns of codependency or relationship addiction?
Yeah, and love addiction, and they're all kind of the same as well as romance addiction. So, love addicts are in love with love, and when they don't have a relationship, it feels like they are in the ethers of emptiness. And so they will often, and I am a love addict in recovery. They'll often settle for less because they feel so empty. They feel like there's nothingness. So they will go for anyone that will give them attention. And so people that are abusive, we often talk about narcissists, but doesn't have to be a narcissist. They're very charming. They know how to suck you in. They know how to, and then what happens is the love addict, codependent with all their people pleasing, gets kind of sucked into that. And they end up turning themselves into a pretzel to please that person. And then a trauma bond is formed. And then it's really hard to get out.
Yeah. So tell us before we keep going who you are and a little bit about your background.
So I started out working with addiction, and then I worked with the families of addicts. I was married to an alcoholic. And then I realized, you know what, this is very codependent to me, just working with the addicts. I need to work with the families that are going through what I'm going through. And what I found often with addiction is that often there are toxic relationships, and codependence and narcissists or toxic people tend to be magnets for each other. So I
Mhm.
started working with codependency, and then that morphed into toxic relationships. And most recently, I've been getting a lot of calls from adult children that have estranged, adult children's parents where their kids have estranged from them, where there's this toxic relationship. So it's kind of multifaceted. It's love addiction, it's codependency, and it's toxic relationships and narcissistic abuse.
I didn't even tell you this, Sherry, because we just met, but we have a book coming out in a couple of months. It's called When Your Ex Turns the Kids Against You, and it's all about dealing with alienation when divorce is what caused it. It's not justified estrangement most of the time, but it's when one parent, usually with some kind of personality disorder, uses the kids as weapons. And so I'm thrilled to know
It
that
was,
you also have background with it.
yeah, it was a big deal years ago when I was in graduate school. They called it parental alienation, and now it's kind of the popularity, I guess, of it happening a lot is coming out probably because of all the narcissism that's out
Mhm.
there. But just a little personal story about myself. A lot of times when you have early attachment issues, you end up becoming a codependent or a love addict. I was premature. I was in an incubator. I did not get that first 3 months of attachment with my mom. So I had a lot of, I guess, separation anxiety, attachment wounds, et cetera, et cetera. And so when I tell that story every time I do an interview, because sometimes people don't realize, like, how did this happen to me? I had great parents. Well, you can have great parents, but you can also have had an early attachment rupture. The other reason that you can get attracted to this is just unavailable parents that were neglectful, abandonment, parentified children. So there's a host of reasons why you end up with abusive people. And I'm sure you talk about this all the time, but in particular, you become a love addict if you have that
Yeah, that's
separation
so
rupture.
interesting that when you mentioned being premature and being in an incubator and not having that physical touch and bonding with a parent, that's beyond anyone's control.
It is. It is. And I knew there was always something different about me, something wrong with me. Why did I feel so empty all the time? And, they say in addiction, when you think about addiction, the brand addiction, so forth, it's the opposite of connection. So if you're
Mhm.
not connecting, you're looking for something outside of yourself to make you feel good on the inside. There's a great saying, it's an inside job, not an outside job. So if you're looking for love, romance, gambling, food, toxic people. It just goes on and on. That's the opposite of connection. So, my work as a trauma therapist is to help people connect with themselves through the deep trauma therapy that I do. And that's what I did. And it really made a difference in my life.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about those highs that people get from all kinds of addictions, that dopamine. Like,
Yeah.
it, I know that when I came out of my unhealthy marriage, and even before it, when I was a teenager, pretty much, I felt like if someone was like a good guy, they were kind of boring.
Right. Okay. So there's this thing called intermittent reinforcement. So
Mhm.
the highs and the lows is what forms the trauma bond. You become addicted to the trauma bond, and it forms a very powerful dopamine hit for you. So the nervous system begins to associate emotional chaos with aliveness and love and excitement and relief. But then it's taken away, and there's the addiction. So you're used to this up and down. That's the trauma bond that's formed. So yeah, if somebody comes along that isn't as up and down, you're going to be not as quote excited or activated, but that's where safety lives. If you want a
Mhm.
healthy, long-term, everlasting relationship, you want to feel safe. So the highs and lows are really just your body responding to what you know. So if you grew up in chaos, in my case, having an unavailable mother when I first came into the world, and she continued to be somewhat unavailable. That's what I was attracted to. So it's like, why do I keep attracting this? Oh, I know why, because that's where I came from. Just like you might end up being attracted to an alcoholic or an addict. There's this attraction to what you know.
Yeah, that makes me think of that the term love at first sight, that I've heard
Yes.
that love at first sight is actually a danger signal with where your body, your brain is something is telling yourself that this is danger because it is familiar. What do you think about love at first sight?
I mean, I don't want to like rule out all situations. I mean, some people just get very lucky and they meet the love of their lives, and it is where they met and they fell in love, etc. But often they're a magnet to what isn't so great for them. So that's
Mhm.
why the idea is, okay, so you have that feeling, you're really excited, slow and steady wins the race. Get
Right.
to know them. And then see what the pattern is. Are they saying to you on, the second date, I'm going to marry you? Are they isolating you? Are they keeping you from your friends? Are they wanting commitment real fast? Like if they're doing that, there could be a sign that they're trying to hook you in pretty fast. I mean, recently I met someone online, I'm on the apps, whatever, and
Mhm.
they're telling me they're going to go off the app. So that could be a red flag. Like now they're not telling me to go off the app, but they're telling me
Uh-huh.
they're going off the app. So, it can be very subtle. It can be
That's
subtle. So
so interesting. I'm going off the app almost like I'm committing to you.
yeah, I kind of felt that way. So I don't feel, I just have to have my feelers up. We have to look for those green flags. We have to look for those red flags. And the problem for love addicts, and I've done a lot of work on myself, is that, they want to be attached so badly that
Mhm.
they sometimes will ignore these flags. They're like, no, maybe it's just this, or maybe it's just that. So you just got to take your time and just go, okay, this looks, let's see what this is, and then you'll know. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't want people to be so afraid and not date and think that everybody's a perpetrator, because not everybody's a perpetrator. I mean, sometimes men are just that way and they just want to woo you or whatever. But we just got to take our time before you give your heart, before you make it so that this is a committed relationship. Get to know the person.
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't tell you this, but the male half of Been There Got Out is my partner in life as well. And we've been together almost 11 years now.
Wow.
And when we first met, we both looked at each other and were like, no. And we met on Match.com. But on our first date, we ended up talking for like 2.5 hours, had a great conversation. afterward, he didn't try to kiss me. He didn't try to hug me. He didn't try to shake my hand, which I really appreciated. And I remember sitting in the car, and for the first time in my life, I paused and thought, how do I feel? Like, I feel comfortable. Like, I
Yeah,
feel
that's good.
good. But
You feel good.
yeah. And then it ended up, I mean, long story short, but it ended up working out. And I think a lot of it was taking it very slow. And for that relationship, this relationship, I also said that as we started dating, please don't say I love you to me first. I want to be the one to say it, because in all the other relationships from, when I was really young, other people would say it first, and then I felt this obligation almost. So I felt like if he could give me the space to when I was ready, I could say it. And I think it changed the
And I'm
dynamic.
going to assume you did a lot of work on yourself before you started dating again. I mean, you probably got into therapy to kind of heal from your last relationship
Well,
or your.
it was kind of at the same time, because I was in my relationship for 20 years, but the last 2 years, it was like I was out, but physically still in the home, figuring out how to
Oh, oh,
get
heaven.
out. So I was in therapy. I did have a trauma therapist, and I didn't know what I was dealing with exactly, but I guess I was doing the work at the same time. So it was like a couple of years of intense stuff and couples counseling and all that other.
Well, good. Congratulations. I'm glad
Thank
you
you.
found somebody awesome. That's cool.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's
But
never too late, guys. I mean, I'm in
I
my
know
60s and I'm
that's a
still
that's a
out
whole
there.
other, yeah, whole other topic. But back to the whole thing with codependency. We hear the term fawning all the time, where people do what they need to do to keep themselves safe. So is there a way that people should maybe pay attention to? Like, what are some common fawning behaviors for love addicts or relationship addicts or people coming out of these unhealthy relationships that they should watch
Yeah.
out and
So
maybe do
it's
differently?
turning yourself into a pretzel to make somebody else happy. You're losing yourself in the process. So it's
Yeah.
people pleasing, it's agreeing when you really don't want to agree, it's minimizing your feelings, it's rushing to fix or restore peace because it's so uncomfortable to not have peace in the relationship. You don't
Mhm.
like the conflict, so you end up becoming very agreeable. So you want to replace fawning with non-reactions that look like pausing before you respond.
Mhm.
Notice, and this is why the trauma therapy is so important, is like notice what's happening in your body. What does your nervous system feel like? Using neutral statements like, I need time to think about it, or let me take a pause, or I'll get back to you later. So you're kind of allowing the discomfort without rushing into soothing the other person, or in some cases, soothing yourself. So some of the things people may want to write down on this call, they might want to say is, I'm not ready to respond yet. Let me sit with it, get back with you. I need a moment before continuing this conversation. I hear you. I need time to process. I'm noticing I'm getting activated, so I'm going to take a pause. Um, this feels really important to you, so I don't want to answer impulsively. I'll respond when I'm more centered. I'm choosing not to engage in this right now. So these are things you can say. I'm not saying that's all you're always going to be met with what is the word? Reciprocity. What is the
Reciprocity.
reciprocity with these statements? But the thing is, if they're getting more activated by you doing this, is a red flag for you. This is a sign that they're not willing to have a conversation. They're not willing to let you calm down and pause and regulate. And that's why it's so important to know how you feel. Like when you went into your car after that date and you went, how am I feeling? So many people don't even know. Like when I do trauma work, I'll say, what do you notice in your body? Where is the felt sense right now? Where do you feel energy? And they're like a deer in the headlight.
Yeah.
Because so often, we're running and running and running and running. We don't know what's happening inside of us. So again, it's an inside job. And once you have a sense of your inside and being comfortable, not being in a dis-ease with yourself, you're going to attract better partners. You're going to be clear when someone isn't the right person for you, and you're going to learn how to take those pauses so you don't become an overfawner or people pleaser.
Yeah, and that's great advice. I couldn't even keep up, so I'll like look
Oh,
later. It's great. No, it's great. Like so many great lines. And I think that's applicable for for our clients too with their children at times, because their children get them really activated. And they're like, I gotta make it stop. I gotta like stop the conflict too.
yeah,
They people
yeah.
please with their own children. She talked about dis-ease, like that feeling of uneasiness and sitting with it. And that's really hard to do.
It is.
I was thinking about how you mentioned most people, some people, not most, but I'm thinking most people in abusive relationships don't even realize that it's abuse. And I'm imagining, like you said, most people, or sorry, some people don't even know what they're feeling. From working with clients who are often traumatized, I see it often because we're on screen, I see them holding their breath. Are there some other signals in people's bodies that are common that you can say, notice if this is happening, that
I think
means you're
lifting up
not.
your
So the
shoulders,
shoulders, like tight
shoulders.
shoulders. Okay.
Yeah, that's a big one. I was in a situation, I went back to California to visit my family and I noticed I was kind of like this. And when I
Mhm.
came back, it wasn't what we're talking about, but there was some, it wasn't calm sailing, smooth sailing. So yeah, I noticed that my back was hurting,
Uh-huh.
sometimes tingling in your legs, jelly legs, feeling vibrations in your hands.
Really?
Yeah, these
Like
are
like
all
like tingly or numb? What about
tingly,
numb? Uh-huh.
tingly, maybe numb. And there's so many great nervous regulation tools out there. I mean, you just have to, you know, Google nervous system regulation. I mean, to get out of these places, you can throw cold water on your body. You can press your breastbone, and then all of a sudden you'll take a breath. You can
Mhm.
rock. These are all self-soothing tools that people can do so they don't respond right away. So they take a moment and do these things to let their ventral vagal sort of, expand. Constriction is a sign of tension, constriction, and then you just put your shoulders back, not up, but back, and you just kind of notice expansion and you notice where the energy is moving. It's very slow, it's very titrated. Not everybody has the patience to learn how to do this. Um, but I'm telling you, if you don't do it, you're going to just keep meeting the same person over and over again. If they read my book, Love Smacked, which is on Amazon, they'll read my story. And the number one thing that really changed my life when I got into my early 50s was hiring a really great trauma therapist and learning how to be present with myself so I didn't have to keep running from myself to the next
You,
relationship.
I notice as you're describing things that people can do when they're stressed, it didn't include talking yourself out of it. It was physical things in your
Oh,
body
yeah.
to do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, self-talk is good, affirmations are good, but I think if you're going to do those things, notice it in your body when you're doing it. Like
Okay.
notice what's happening when you say those affirmations or you do that self-talk.
What do you think about bilateral movement? So like the
Love
back
it.
and forth.
Love
Okay.
it.
Yeah,
I
can
do
you
that.
explain what that is for people who might not know what that means?
Yeah, I'm not an EMDR expert. I do somatic work, but I do have some training in this. It's what it is. It's basically it does something to I really don't even know how to explain it
All right, yeah.
briefly.
So from my understanding,
I'm not
it's
the brain person. I'm not.
that's okay.
Just how it works.
No, it's okay. No, I've heard because I've interviewed like a yeah, like it's but bilateral movement is anything that uses both sides of your body back and forth. So like walking
And
is
your eyes.
bilateral,
And
yeah,
your eyes.
EMDR back and forth, but something where it's back and forth, swinging your arms.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, or
but
shaking. But I
yeah,
would say this, if you want to use this is how I use it. Again, I'm not an EMDR specialist. I think EMDR is awesome. And if people should, if they're interested in that, those are great therapists. Again,
mhm,
I do the what's happening in your body kind of therapy, but I do sometimes do this. And then I'll say to somebody, they start talking about what are their protective allies? What makes them feel safe? Like,
mhm,
where do they feel yeah, where do they feel safe? Like right now, I live on the ocean, so I think of the ocean and I just
mhm,
start making it really big. So, like, if you're having a fight with someone, or you want to take a pause, or just go to your happy place, or happy person, or someone that has, you can imagine someone with kind eyes. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's not, maybe it's a child, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's your therapist, and you just make it really big. Um, Another thing that I do is I bring in our ancestors. Like I had a very close relationship with my grandmother, and so I will just imagine my grandmother, her love, for unconditional support, and I just keep making it bigger and bigger, and it actually it's you're embodying inside these really great pathways, great neural pathways.
As you're describing this is very similar to what we recommend because a lot of our clients are dealing with family court, so they're extremely stressed out. We say,
Right.
what can you do in the moment, and what you're doing with the back and forth with the tapping, or we say like on your legs, if you don't want people to see it, where you tap your legs, or hugging yourself,
Yes.
and also thinking about someone that you love as this protective force that's around you. And I know when I was in court for 10 years, and I would wear my aunt who died, who I was very close to, she had this pair of Capezio boots from like the 60s that happened to fit me. And so those are my court shoes. And so I'd wear them to
I
court
love
because I
it.
would feel like I had her strength with me, and I
I
felt like much stronger. So yeah,
I
I love
totally
that idea.
believe in that. And they do say that our ancestors, their energy lives in their stuff. So her energy was right there with you. If you believe in that, I mean, I just got chills, so I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure she was there. Um, sometimes like an onyx beads are for strength. Even
Hmm.
just the symbolic of wearing of an onyx, beaded bracelet and just holding it. What you were talking about was another type of tapping, EFT or thought field therapy, which is, this kind of tapping. There's a great app called the Tapping Solution.
Hmm.
And this is stuff that you can do on your own, and it's amazing. And then the other one that you mentioned, you have a lot of great tools, but is the butterfly hug,
Uh-huh.
and you just hold yourself and you do that. It's all, possible. You can't talk your way out of that dysregulation. You just can't.
Yeah. And yeah, and some of these things aren't always needed for just extreme trauma or stuff like family court. I remember my son, when he was going to get his driver's license, he was really nervous. And I said, Izzy,
Yeah,
why don't we try some tapping? Because I had just read the tapping book. And he was like, oh, this stuff is like, it felt really silly. But he did
it
really, I
worked.
calmed him down because he couldn't touch the certain points at the same time and be nervous because he was focusing on getting it right. And
I
he
did
passed
that
the
with
test.
my 4-year-old grandson the other day because he's a little addicted to his iPad. And I was
Uh-huh.
in California visiting them, and he was just like going off the rails, having a temper tantrum, which is, I think, that dopamine, just the crash of not having it. And I said, Hudson, just hold your fleshy right here. Hold this, your fleshy part between your finger and here. And he did it, and it helped him calm down a little bit.
Wow. I think Chris told me something about, does that also like help with headaches or something?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
But I did it just to see if he would calm down, and he did. Even if you can just like lower your voice, talk in a regulated tone, Um, yeah, I think the parents today have it a lot harder because of all the screen time and so forth. That's a whole other subject.
I know for sure. All right. So those are like amazing, lots and lots of helpful tips in the moment. If someone isn't in their, like, if they're not activated, but they just want to do something like every day when they wake up, is there something they should do while they're
Um,
in a calm state that could possibly prevent this kind of activation or stress?
Yeah, I mean, I would say each day pause, ask yourself, what do I need now? What do I need? What is one small need I can achieve, or I can give myself? Can I give my heart, can I cradle my heart right now? Can I give it some love? You know, can I find a place inside me that actually feels good? Like, I'm going through
Mm,
so much, I feel so constricted, I'm so stressed, but what feels good inside of me? Just even the smallest little place. Um, and then notice where is the urge to fix or rescue? Um, and just give it some love. Give that little girl, some love, that it felt like that's what it had to do to survive. And that I'm an adult, I'm in an adult body, I drive, I work. I mean, it sounds so silly, but sometimes we actually respond like our little girl, our little inner child. So it's
mhm.
like, I'm going to give my little inner child some love from my adult self. I can do that. I can give it what it didn't get.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes so much sense. And I love the thing about finding a small place where something feels good because, like I said, our people are going through so much. And the number one word we hear is overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed. So being able to pause and focus on one little thing that's going
That
well.
feels good. That feels good.
Yeah.
And look for that felt sense. And then every day, name one way your worth showed up through your presence or your boundaries, not through helping or pleasing or being needed. But what did I do today that was healthy? Healthy communication and not people pleasing, not pretzel bending. It's hard because we just sometimes just want peace. And sometimes we think giving in will bring us more peace, but it really doesn't in the end. It comes back to bite us. It really does. You got to be, I mean, I don't want to say you got to be strong, but kind of is. I had to go to court for 2 years. My mother had met a con man. I actually wrote a post about it yesterday. And I was in court for 2 years to get a restraining order. My mother had dementia. My father had died, and my mother got involved with this terrible monster man, is what I called him. Was a sociopath, a narcissist, and a fraudster. And and I forget what I was saying, but I had to go to court for 2 years, and I had to deal with it, and I had to be strong, and it wasn't easy. So I have, anybody on this call right now, I haven't really talked to divorced women in a while, I don't think, but in this kind of platform, but I just want to give you my compassion because I know how hard it is. It's so hard to not only go through a divorce, but have to go to court and then to deal with someone who's abusive. It's probably one of the hardest things that we'll ever have to go through.
It is. And we always say divorce is just part one because then you're co-parenting and that goes on and on and on and on.
On and on and on. Yeah.
Yeah, so very, very hard. So yeah, I'm going to be recommending that as well as I've interviewed many of our clients because I think it is so important to pause and find that one healthy thing you're doing, how you're doing things right. So speaking of that, there is so much shame and guilt associated with having a bad picker. That's what a lot of people say is, you know what, I don't even want to try anymore. And it's not necessarily even just with romance but they feel like I'm so bad. Even I've chosen bad friends. I don't want to do it anymore because I'm ashamed of myself and my family's angry at me. Like, what advice would you have for people who feel that shame and guilt because of what choices they've made?
Well, the shame is like they're saying something's wrong with me, and the guilt is saying I'm responsible for other people.
Mm,
So it's kind of a different nuance. What I would say is go to the full well. Don't go to the empty well. Go to the support groups. Get a therapist. Talk to the people that get you. Get into a divorce group. When I got divorced, I was very young. I was a single mother with a 1-year-old many, 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 many years ago. Because now my daughter's 41, and
wow.
yeah, and that's why I have 2 grandchildren. And I got into a single parent group. It was one of the best things I ever did. It really helped me feel not alone. I think the biggest thing is just to not feel alone. And, right now we have so much great stuff online. We have Instagram, but also be cautious. Hire the people that really know what they're doing. Like, one of the issues, I think coaches are awesome. Coaches are great for many things, and so are therapists. Figure out, who's the best professional for you, because there's a lot of people out there saying, well, I've been through this, so you should hire me. Well, what are your credentials? What kind of training do you have? What kind of certificates? What kind of licenses? Just be very discerning. Just like you're going to be discerning when you meet the next person, be discerning with who you hire. I don't mean to let go on my soapbox there, but
No, 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 it's important. I mean, we talk about this sometimes too with there's different types of support groups, but you got to be really careful because a lot of them feed on your fear. And when you're in these support groups where it's just bashing other people, it keeps you in that trauma loop and that's not resolution focused and it's just going to make things worse, right? With your brain. I remember someone I was talking to was saying it's almost like with water how it forms these trails and by being that happens to your brain when you're around people that just keep going around and around.
you end up being a victim. I mean, you are a victim, but you don't want to live in that victimhood. And you don't want to. I mean, you want to thrive. You don't want to just survive. I think the 12-step program is great. Now, again, those are self-led by other people,
Yeah,
but I think it's a great practice in between working maybe with a therapist to keep yourself on that track of boundaries and letting go and surrendering, because some things are out of our control. I mean,
yeah.
we can only do what we can do.
And when you talk about a 12-step program, you're not just talking about AA, but there's different types of
Oh
12-step
yeah.
programs. And I remember one of the most helpful for me, just as I was getting out of my marriage, my divorce lawyer said, go to Al-Anon. I didn't even know exactly what I was dealing with at the time, but it was so helpful
It's the
because I
best
remember
thing
being
I ever did.
really emotional and seeing people in there who had emotionally detached. They were so happy. And I kept thinking, I can't imagine my life could ever be like that guy over there who's just grinning and thankful for everything.
Yeah,
And I did
there's
get
three
there.
programs. There's Codependent Anonymous, there's Al-Anon, and then there's Sex and Love Addiction Anonymous. I love Al-Anon. I started in Codependency Anonymous when I was young, and then Al-Anon because I was married to an alcoholic. And two of my dearest, best, I wouldn't be in Florida if it wasn't for Al-Anon. I moved from California to
Yeah.
Florida because one of my friends from Al-Anon ended up moving here. I loved it out here. I kind of came, I didn't follow her per se, but I learned about Florida and how I could afford to live here on the ocean. And all these great things happen from Al-Anon. Al-Anon is a miracle. I agree with
I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh, Sherry, you've given me so
you. We have
much
so much
stuff.
in common. We have
I
so much in
know. I know. So how can people find you and your
common.
book? Say it again.
Okay, so my website is sherrygaba.com. If they want to do a 15-minute consult, just go sherrygaba.com/contact. I have a book called Love Smacked, which is on Amazon Kindle and Audible. The hardback is no longer my book. It's the same book, but it's ridiculous what it costs. So you got to get it on Kindle or Audible.
Mhm.
Um, and then I have a free ebook at sherrygaba.com/trauma dash quiz. They can take a quiz to see if their codependency or love addiction or toxic relationship is related to trauma. So that's sherrygaba.com/trauma dash quiz. They'll take the quiz and then they get a free ebook on the link between trauma and toxic relationships and
So,
codependence.
so helpful. Well, thank you so much, Sherry.
Oh,
I'm
this was so
glad that
fun.
it
Now
just
I want to
worked.
do more of these. I want to
That
do
we
more of
can. Let's. We'll plan something soon. But thank you again so
these.
much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.